So my name is Raphael Veit. I've been, how am I involved in e-waste? I've been monitoring extended producer responsibility legislation for the past 20 years or so. And our company Sargis provides analytical reports on legislation. So I've read about, 3,000 text laws and analyzed them. And we also look at the implementation, what markets emerge as a result of the requirements of the legislation.
Yeah.
And that's what we do, and we provide this information on a subscription basis to compliance organizations, producers that are affected by the legislation and so on. Yeah. There are a number of countries in Asia which have had e-waste legislation in place for over 20 years and which are working sufficiently well, or which are working quite well, in Korea, Taiwan, etc. China is also doing things. In Southeast Asia, on the other hand, the e-waste legislation has now been contemplated maybe for 10 years or so, and or even longer. But still there are in many countries, no effective policy measures in place. And I think the challenge is to identify the real issues, identifying the real problems, and then thinking about appropriate solutions. The first step would be to identify the problem, and the real issue. Is the real issue, for example, a lack of enforcement of treatment standard, or is it a lack of standards at all? Mm-hmm. If the latter is the case, well then obviously you could look for appropriate standards to put in place in your country and then enforce them. And then the next step would be to obviously see where there is whether EPR legislation is required at all, because EPR legislation, as we've discovered in this workshop and elsewhere, is very complex. There are many stakeholders involved, etc., etc. There might be actually easier solution if for solving a funding problem, if there is a funding problem, than involving so many parties. But maybe for certain products it might be appropriate to do that. For other products it might not be. So I think it's a complicated issue. A good networking opportunity, but apart from that, it's obviously knowledge building and sharing. There are many interesting questions raised here, and many of them are being answered, or you can find ways to answer them. And I think raising the EPR is sort of a fashionable term, but what is behind it and how the complexity behind it, whether it's on the governance side or whether it's on the technical side, these are really complex issues. And I think through these workshops, these issues are highlighted, and the awareness of them is increased among a wider group of people.